Hello out there, folks. Today we are taking a look at Pirates vs. Dinosaurs from Jolly Roger Games, but probably more importantly than that, it is designed by Richard Lanius, who has done a ton of different, very famous, sometimes infamous games, Arkham Horror and Defenders of the Realm. He's done a lot of Kickstarter games recently, some based on the Old West, some based on zombies. I mean, the guy gets around. He's done a lot of different games. And this one is, like I said, Pirates versus Dinosaurs. Now, I don't really know what's been up in the last few years with this whole thing of everyone liking to have these different mashups of these different genre tropes, ninjas and aliens and zombies, and I mean, Smash Up is like the crystallized epitome of that whole thing. But there's a lot of different games on Kickstarters that like to do this genre mashing, and this game was on Kickstarter, as a matter of fact. Barely made its funding goal, if I remember correctly. But nevertheless, this one is a bit different than it's a big production. This isn't just a simple card game like Smash Up. The theme of the game is basically what it says, more or less. You all play different pirate captains who hear this old man, this old drunkard, talking about this island that's full of vast treasures, but is also full of these giant, monstrous lizards. And you all grab a piece of map fragment from him along with a relic that he found and go to the island hoping to find the treasure and get out before the dinosaurs eat and kill you. But the game is sort of a deduction game, but not a deduction. You're trying to find your pieces, you're trying to match up your map fragments of things out on the board, so you're trying to find your specific area so that you can go to the dig site. So in that way, there's actually two different games. You play one game until you get to the dig site, then it sort of starts a whole other version of the game. It sounds a little confusing, but let's go ahead and do the overview just so you can get a better idea of how the game plays. Then we'll come back and I'll tell you what I really think about it. Okay, there's lots of different stuff going on in Pirates vs. Dinosaurs, and I can't give you a complete overview, but I'll hit all the major details just to see if this is something that you might enjoy. So there's a lot of different setups to the game. Each player is going to take this different player board. They're all basically the same, and I know it's hard to see because I can't use all the room, but there's different spaces for all the different cards that you have. You can throw your crew cards on here, and then there's spaces for mat fragments. Out here on the board, you have a lot of different areas. Each area of the board is broken up into a different segment. You can look at the different little clock symbols and also these little terrain symbols telling you what type of terrain, like jungle and swamp, water, grassland, and so forth. Over here you have lost or lost at sea or forgotten or whatever pirates or crew who certain cards will have you grab those or put more pirate and crew into that space. You have your deck of cards here, which represent island cards. Those can pretty much go anywhere. I just happen to put them there, and I'll get to those in a moment. You have a stack of envoy tokens, and then you have curse tokens and the dig site up in the top corner of the board. Now, at the start of the game, each player is going to, like I said, take their pirate board, and then you're going to draft some cards. You have different relics, which are the different, like I said in the intro, the different relics that the old guy who at the bar found and that the pirate captain scrambled for before they ran out. And they all do different things that influence the game, like Shifty Kevin's Lucky Dice. You get to roll for each encounter you have at the start of your turn and possibly discard it. Jilly's Key is going to give you 2 free treasures when you get to the dig site to start digging. The Sexton of St. Catherine, you get to add a die to your exploration rolls, and so on and so forth. You'll put a number of these out equal to the number of players, and then another one that's kept hidden. Each player will draft them in turn order of however you decided turn order, and then the last player gets to choose from one and the one that was face down, whichever one that player wants. Then in reverse return order, you're going to draft different first mates, and each of the first mates goes onto your player board and gives you a special effect that may be able to be reset at a certain point. So for instance, Bill the Quartermaster, you can perform an envoy action without taking an envoy token. This is only usable one time during the course of the game, and I'll get to what envoy tokens are in a few minutes. Shortcut Charlie, you can reroll once your exploration roll, and you get to refresh it whenever you start a new exploration. Juma has Battle Fury. You can reroll once all of the dice from a combat roll, and you can refresh it when starting a new exploration or arriving at the dig site. So once you get all of those, then you get to equip yourself. Each player has the option of 2 different character weapons. You have either pistols and pikes or swords and muskets. These will determine how you fight during the course of the game. If you took swords and muskets, you're going to get 2 combat, you're going to get a combat die, for every 2 crewmen that you have. So you'll have these crewmen over here that you may be able to purchase in this phase, and that's basically all the swords and muskets do. If you have pistols and pikes, you only get a die for every 3 crewmen that you have, but this card is especially effective against dinosaurs, which I'll get to in a moment, and you can also ignore gator ambushes. So you have to make that choice. Then you have 20 points to spend on buying cards and equipment, and any leftover, you can only buy 3 items, and any leftover points you have, you can spend to buy crew, 1 crew per point you have left. So you don't have to buy 3 items if you don't want to. So a lot of people choose to pair it for 3. Once per turn, you can reroll a die once for any purpose. The shovels cost you 2 points. You add 1 die to your dig for treasure attempts. That's during the dig at the end of the game. And the machete, for 3 points, you can add 2 dice to your exploration rolls in the mountain, jungle, and swamp zones. And these are just some of the different items you can purchase. So once you have those, you'll spend your remaining points over to buy crew, which you can, again, these are effective for your weapons, but also at the end of the game, for hauling treasure back to your ship. Then the game begins. Now, every player has 2 different player pieces in their color. You have this cube, which is used to represent time exploring, and also this X, which is used to determine where you're exploring. So in turn order, you're going to put yourself out in the location you want to be at the beginning of the game, and players can double up if they want to. Wherever you go, you're going to look at whatever the time symbol is here. So if I go to this area, which is a swamp, I have to put my time symbol on my board at 3. That represents how much time it's going to take me to explore. The other thing that happens is that I get some of these island cards at the beginning of the game. Now, island cards can do 2 different things, and there's a couple of different types here. Well, first off, there's Pirate Fate cards. Pirate Fate cards can be played on your turn, and they'll usually give you a beneficial effect. So, for instance, the Trained Monkey, you can play it on your turn to steal 2 randomly drawn cards from another player in the same location as you. Then the Idol's Curse. You play on a player that is resolving a native attack before they roll. The strength of the native attack is increased by 1, or you play on a player that is resolving a native village. Subtract the success from their result. Now, the other types of cards are encounter cards. And there's 2 types of encounter cards. First, there's other encounters, which just go, they're going to put them next to your board in the other spot. And we'll get to how that works in a moment. But for instance, native village, this can be good or bad. You roll 3 dice, check the result below. Depending on the number of successes, a good or a bad thing might happen. You have cliffs, which you would play on another player as long as you're in a shared location, which indicates up here where you can play it. That player has to roll 3 dice for each failure. They lose a crew. If you have a rope, roll only 1 die instead of 3. And then there are dinosaurs attacks. So like the Deinonychus, it has to be played in a shared location. They lose 2 crew prior to the combat, and if they're armed with pistols and pikes, you reduce this loss to 1 crew, and they have a strength of 3. So what does this all mean? Well, as you go through your turn order, you're going to have the opportunity to play encounters. When you play encounters on someone, you're going to play them either on their dino attack or other encounter, as I said, describing the 2 different types. You can only play 1 encounter per player, and you can't give an encounter to someone whose spot that you're trying to play it on is already full with another encounter. At the start of your next turn, after you get those encounters, you have to resolve them. You can resolve them in any order you want, but you have to resolve them one way or the other. If they're good, good for you. If they're bad, like combat, you have to resolve combat. Now, in this game, all the way up until the point where you get to the dig site, the only things that are successes on these dice are skulls. There are 2 skulls per die, 2 swords per die, and 2 blank faces per die. So only skulls matter as successes during the first part of the game. When you get to the dig site, swords also count as successes. So you're going to add up how many dice you get to roll according to your crew and the weapon that you have, and try to meet or beat the number of the strength of whatever card you're fighting. So this is just one example of a dinosaur attacks card. You'd have to get 3 successes or better. If you fail, if you don't get 3, you lose the difference in crew, and then you get to discard the encounter. Now, the main meat of your turn, however, is going to be trying to explore. So if you're at a location, you have a few different things you can do during your explore phase. You can choose to explore, you can choose to take an envoy token, which gives you 6 more crew, but at the end of the game, you have to discard a treasure for every envoy token you have. Or you can choose to start a new exploration somewhere else by cutting an exploration short, which means you have to roll dice and potentially lose crew as well. If you choose to explore, you always roll 2 dice and you have an automatic success. So you'll roll 2 dice. There I have no successes there, but I always have at least 1, and then you'll move your time counter down for every success that you have. Whenever you reach 0, which may have to be on subsequent turns, as in this case, you get to peek at one of these 2 map tiles that are out on the board. Now, every player starts with a certain amount of map fragments, depending on the number of players. For this setup, I just use every tile and every fragment. So you'll peek at a tile and see if that tile matches any of the ones that are on your player board. So this is a quiet pool. Now, if I happen to have a quiet pool, which is very unlikely, out on my board, I would be able to flip this token up, flip the corresponding map token up, and then I get to start a new exploration somewhere else. Even if I failed in my exploration, I'd still get to have the option of starting, well, I'm sorry, as soon as you get down to 0, even if you don't match the token, you have the option of exploring, of moving to somewhere else. Then on your next turn, you'll explore a new area. Once you know that a place doesn't either has or doesn't have your particular map fragment tiles, you're supposed to move on to another spot. Now, once you're done with that, that's when you get to play all of your different encounter cards, and then you can also play any of the other island cards that apply, and then it gets down to the end of your turn. Now, I also forgot to mention that you draw island cards, 2 island cards at the start of your turn, and then at the end of your turn, you have to discard to a hand limit, which I believe is 7. Now, one optional thing that you can do instead of exploring or instead of taking an envoy token is choose to fight the other players. So let's say that you're in a location, you have another pirate there, you can choose to fight. Fights are resolved the same way as they are with the dinosaurs or the natives, except that if you win a combat during the course of the regular game, the difference is just taken off of the player's crew. So however many the different, like let's say that you have 7 successes, your opponent has 5 successes, they have to lose 2 crew. But you lose a crew just for going into battle, so it could be kind of a wash in certain circumstances. Now, this is all well and good, but once someone actually gains all 3 of their map fragments, let's just say for the sake of argument, these are the 3, and one of them actually is a 3 by pure coincidence, then you immediately go to the dig site. And you're effectively out of the main game at this point. You discard all of your island cards, and now you're just in a separate phase of the game, and you're waiting for the other players to catch up and go there. If you're the first one to the dig site, you get to draw a free treasure from this bag here. Now, this bag is full of treasure and a lot of dangers, but your goal in the game is to get as much treasure as possible. So at the dig site, you, on your turn, instead of doing any of your normal actions that you would have done the rest of the game, you have 2 different options. Well, actually 3 different options. You can either keep taking envoy tokens if you need more crew, because you need 2 crew for every treasure you're trying to drag back to your ship. You can dig, which is to say that you roll 2 dice and hope to get successes, and at the dig site, from then on, successes are always swords and skulls. Or you can fight another player who's at the dig site with you. And fighting there works the same as in the normal game, except that if you win a fight, not only does your opponent lose crew, you also get to take randomly one of their treasures. So this is an example of a treasure token. If you successfully draw a treasure from the bag, keep it hidden. You get to look at the other side, but keep it hidden face down in front of you. These go from 1,000 up to 12,000, I believe. But there's other nasty surprises waiting in the bag as well. So, for instance, you have these ghost tokens. If you draw a ghost token, you have to take one of these little curse tokens and then throw the ghost back into the bag. 1 curse token means you have to throw one of your treasures that you got back into the bag. 2 curse tokens, that if you've already gained a curse token, you take another one, you have to lose 4 crew and throw 2 treasures back in the bag. And if you take a third or more than 3 tokens, you have to get rid of 6 crew and then throw all of your treasures back in the bag. So that can be very bad. If you draw a dinosaur token, you have to keep milling through the deck until you find a dinosaur attacks card and then resolve it immediately and then throw this back into the bag. If you draw a volcano card, this is actually going to be part of what triggers the end of the game, regardless of what happens with the players. This volcano token is going to go up at the top of the board, and depending on what spot it just filled up, something bad will happen. So the first volcano says the active player loses a crew. The second one says the active player loses a crew and returns a treasure to the bag. All the way up until 6, which is the island sinks, the game is over, and all players who are not back at the ship immediately lose the game. Now, on your turn, you can just keep doing this. You can keep trying to draw treasures from the bag, attack other players and steal their treasure, or you try to take envoys in order to get more crew and take more treasure back to the ship, but eventually you're going to want to leave. On your turn, you just decide, I'm going back to the ship. Once you're back on the ship, you are immune to anything that happens. No more bad things can happen, but you also cannot participate in the game anymore at all. You can't draw treasure, nothing at all, unless you use a variant that's in the rulebook that says that you can actually draw stuff out of the bag in order to stymie the other players. I'm not really going to get into that. Eventually, all the other players will finish their exploration as well, make it to the dig site. They'll have to decide if they want to push their luck or not, because as more treasure comes out of the bag, it's more likely that more bad stuff is going to remain in the bag, and you have to push your luck, and eventually everyone will get back to the anchorage, the game will end. You'll compare how much treasure you have, get rid of treasure that you have to because of the envoy tokens, and each treasure that you get rid of because of these has to be a unique treasure, and add up whoever has the most money. Whoever has the most money is the best pirate, I guess. And that's Pirates versus Dinosaurs. Oh, sorry. Just in case you're wondering about that Tyrannosaurus piece, it's not nearly as cool as you might expect. Basically, there's going to be a card that will let you put the Tyrannosaurus out on a certain area. When it gets to that area, if there's any other players there, or even if you're there, those players are going to lose a crew. And from then on, if they try to explore there, they're going to lose time. It takes them. They lose successes for exploring because they're trying to dodge a Tyrannosaurus. So, not as cool as you might suspect. It doesn't go around moving around randomly eating people, but c'est la vie. Sorry again, I also forgot to mention that the island cards can be used for multiple things. So down at the bottom of the card, you have this little bomb symbol. You can discard any of these cards during your turn, or perhaps sometimes even out of turn, to get a special effect. So for instance, you ignore all the rest of the card. Gate or ambush, you can discard before any roll to count all of your sword symbols that roll as successes. Obviously, that's only during the main game. You can discard the Dinosaurs card to discard during a dinosaur attack in a swamp or a beach prior to combat, and the dinosaur attack is canceled. You can discard the Velociraptors after any roll to reroll one die of your choice from that roll. So it's just another way to use the cards. All right, I want to work my way step by step through this game. The rulebook is very well laid out, very simple. The game is actually very simple when you get down to it, so it can seem overwhelming with the amount of bits that come with this, but the rulebook is laid out very well. Everything is laid out very simple to understand, and so you should be up and running in no time, even if you didn't pre-learn the game when you get to the table. So not really an issue there. They did a good job. The components are really great. The board looks good. I'm never really a fan when they use cubes, but the cubes here are nice, and also those the little X marks the spot figures representing where your character is exploring, or where your pirate captain and crew are exploring, look really cool as well. There's that really cool Tyrannosaurus miniature, which you may not even see in some games, but still, it looks cool. All the cards are a good quality. The artwork, I wasn't a fan at first, but I kind of warmed up to it. I think it works really well, and it fits with the theme, where the theme is, it's a pirate game, but it's not a serious pirate game. This isn't like Merchants and Marauders. This is just supposed to be sort of silly. It's pirates versus dinosaurs, so it works well. The dinosaurs look cool. All the other different tokens look cool, like the curse token, so not an issue there as well. Now the mechanics, like I said in the beginning, it's kind of hard to explain this game because it's a deduction game without much deduction. Basically, you're going around the island hoping that your particular tile that you need is in your location, but chances are it's just pure random luck a lot of times. One of the games that we played, someone ended up finding 2 of the 3 map tiles that they needed right off the bat. First area they went to, they're both there. That person was at the dig site very, very quickly. Now, of course, as one player finds tiles that they have and that they need, it gets faster for the other the other players by process of elimination to find their tiles. So it's not like one player is going to be at the dig site for very long before the others catch up. But getting to the dig site early is really helpful. So if you, by pure random luck, are able to get your tiles early, kudos for you. But that's the problem with the game, is that it is pure random chance. And the reason why I know this is because I've played 3 games of this, and every game was completely different, ranging from okay to complete misery to okay, yeah, I guess this game is kind of bad. And it's all because everything in this game is just so random. Don't get me wrong, there's a lot of decision making in this game, and that's great. I love decision making. I love it when the games offer you a lot of different things to do. But in the end, no matter how well you plan out, no matter what the decisions you make are and how well you choose, I mean, you're making decisions right from the get-go. You're choosing how to equip your crew and the items that you're going to take, and that's great. I love that part of it. But it may not matter. It may not matter because you could just roll awful in every single circumstance, because rolling the dice is everything. That's all you do in this game. I don't mind dice in games. I'm not one of those heavy Euro players that wants everything to be deterministic and there's no luck and it's just pure battle of wits. That's fine. That's not what this game is supposed to be. It's pirates versus dinosaurs, but wow, you can just get destroyed on those dice. And if you really, no, you can play cards from your hands in order to mitigate that factor. because every card can be used for 2 different things. Again, an aspect of games I really like. But by doing so, you're making it so that you're not putting encounters out on the other players. And if other players do very well with their dice rolls and they don't need to use the bottom part of their cards in order to influence their dice rolls at all, guess what? They're going to be hitting you with very nasty encounters, which are another thing that you have to worry about, and another thing holding you up. It is very easy for one or more players to just get buried in bad rolls and not have much to do and just watch as the other players, especially at the dig site, just accrue treasure after treasure after treasure. The game encourages combat between the players, but not during the course of the game. It doesn't really help you that much if you're wasting a very valuable turn, because it is a race. To attack another player while you're exploring doesn't really do much. It's a waste of time. Most people don't bother. When you get to the dig site, it actively encourages combat to the point where some players in some games were like, I'm not even going to dig for treasure. Who cares? I'm just going to take yours. Now, it is pirates, and I can understand that. But at a certain point, that doesn't even become viable because you lose crew every single time that you do it, and then you're not able to take your own treasure back, so what's the point? If you can't take your own treasure back, and you're having to take these envoy tokens to make you lose treasure, but the person who was able to dig fast, get to the dig site fast, and just pull a lot of treasure and get back to the ship, perfectly fine. Can't do anything to stop them. They're good to go. And everyone else just sort of flails about. But then another problem is if you go back to the ship too soon, the other players who are still very lucky and pulling the right treasures out of the bag can just stay there indefinitely. You can play with a variant that makes it so that you can sort of jerk over the other players from the ship, but that just added another layer of fiddliness to the game. And the game is just long. I've played it with multiple groups of players and it just drags on because there's so much to do. Like I said, I like that the cards do multiple things, but every time you draw new cards, unless you've played the game like 6, 7, 8 times, and you're just not familiar with what they do, and some cards that are the same have different stuff on the bottom and they're for different areas. People are constantly making the mistake of playing cards where people are not, you can't play encounters on people that aren't in the right area or in the same encounter area with you, and they don't know that, and people are always having, every time someone does something, people have to be like, wait, and take minutes to look through their cards, and it just drags the game out. Especially, I would never, if you still like this game or think you might like it and want to get it, I'm telling you, do not play with 5 or 6 players. Don't do it. I don't even know that I'd recommend 4. We played it with 3 and it was okay. It was still probably over long. But when we got up to 4 players, just having that one extra person you're just waiting there forever. You could play another game waiting for someone to do something. And you have no control over what they play on you. It's hard to stop them. You can play some sort of screw you cards on them, but again, you're shuffling through your hands. While one player may have had to use all their cards and just sits there with no cards in hands. There's a great theme here. There's some great ideas here. The game is beautiful, but it is just the amount of fun that you get out of it does just not make up for the amount of just sitting around, waiting, cursing out the dice, and just, hoping. At a certain point, you just hope that someone puts an end to it. And it's really sad. I think that there was a kernel of a really great game here that was just, maybe there should have been more deduction to engage the other players. Maybe they should have done it. Maybe there's too many mechanics here. Maybe they shouldn't have the using cards for multiple things. Or maybe it should be easier to mitigate those dice rolls. Whatever it is, I feel that the game is just, there's just going to be a very certain subset of people who are really into take that screw you games and don't mind game length. Those are the people that are going to like this game. Everyone else, I cannot recommend this game. And I feel badly about that because I was super excited for it, but it's just bad. It just is. Sorry to say it. My name is Nick. This has been Board Game Brawl. I'm reminding you to get out there and game every day in every way.